This is the most ironic blow in the classic American TV series Breaking Bad, and also the moment where each main character faces their greatest collapse. At the same time, it marks the beginning of the show's grand finale. The impact of this episode on the audience is even more intense than the final episode. Picking up from the thrilling plot of the previous episode, Hank was wounded when he ran out of bullets due to the huge difference in firepower between the police and the robbers, and his right-hand man Steven died outright. Seeing Steven's shotgun dropped not far away, Hank tries to make one last struggle before his death, but the ruthless Jack doesn't give him the chance. Jack's accomplice confirms that Hank and Steven are indeed from the DEA, and Jack decisively decides to execute Hank. At this critical moment, Walter stops Jack in time, saying that Hank is his family and begs Jack to spare Hank. But in this situation, Jack couldn't possibly leave any witnesses. Just as Jack is about to shoot Hank, a desperate Walter reveals that he has $80 million hidden nearby. Walter offers all the money if Jack agrees to spare Hank's life.
Is let him go.
That's a hell of an offer. What do you think, Fed?
His name is Hank.
Should I let you go?
You can go yourself. Please.
What? You want me to beg? You're the smartest guy I ever met, and you're too stupid to see. He made up his mind 10 minutes ago.
Seeing the situation clearly, Hank doesn't beg for mercy. He chooses to say goodbye to Walter and the audience in a tough guy manner.
What you gonna do?
Walter, watching Hank being killed, can't believe his eyes and collapses to the ground in despair. Although Walter exposed his $80 million, he couldn't save Hank, but it also proves Hank's place in Walter's heart. Jack's men dug up all of Walter's money and buried Hank and Steven's bodies in the same pit. Out of respect for Walter, Todd opens his handcuffs and requests his uncle leave one barrel of money for Walter. Jack lets Walter take the money and tells him not to hold a grudge. At this moment, Walter, suppressing his inner rage and sadness, agrees to Jack's demands. As Jack and his men are about to leave, Walter reminds Jack of his promise to kill Jesse, as Walter had already noticed Jesse hiding under his car, so Jesse was dragged out from under the car by them. Just as Jack is about to shoot Jesse, Todd suddenly stops him. Todd's reason is the concern that Jesse, during his collaboration with Hank, might have information that could be harmful to them, so Todd requests to take Jesse back for interrogation before killing him. Walter, powerless to object, agrees. As Jesse is about to be taken away, Walter vengefully reveals a deeply buried secret to him.
And I watched her die. I watched her and choked to death. I could have saved her, but I didn't.
Hearing this, Jesse collapses emotionally and stops struggling, allowing Jack and his men to take him away. From Walter's point of view, if Jesse hadn't wanted to take revenge on Walter, Hank wouldn't have been involved and died, and his $80 million wouldn't have been taken away from him. Looking back at the entire series, Walter and Jesse have been through countless breakups and reconciliations, supporting each other, loving and hating each other. In the end, neither could kill the other, and neither could escape unscathed. Their fates were equally tragic. Jesse helps Walter with his contraband and ends up alone with everyone around him dying. Jesse's attempt to get revenge on Walter backfired, and he ended up becoming someone else's slave. Walter once risked his life to save Jesse, but Jesse still stood against him. Determined to get rid of Jesse, Walter accidentally caused the death of his own family. These scenes of ironic drama and fateful encounters are enough to push anyone to the brink of collapse. The episode begins with Walter and Jesse making contraband for the first time in the wilderness, with Walter lying to Skyler that he had to work late at the car wash. This shot of Skyler has significant meaning later on, which we will discuss shortly. The screen shifts to Walter, who gradually disappears from the frame after successfully lying. Jesse and the RV also disappear behind him. The scene changes, with the sound of gunshots. The same place, the same angle. The scene of the police battle appeared here. It's the same plot that was just mentioned above. After Jack and his gang of robbers leave, the same location and camera angle only reveal a mentally shattered Walter. Walter then goes to his car and sees himself in the rearview mirror. Ironically, he can't help but adjust the angle of the mirror because he doesn't even want to see himself now. To make matters worse, when Walter starts to drive away from this place of heartbreak, his car stops not far from the site. Walter discovers that the gas tank is empty, and upon checking, he finds that the gas tank was unfortunately hit by a bullet during the shootout. Left with no choice, Walter begins rolling a barrel filled with $11 million home by hand. The director has also arranged a big egg in the shot of Walter pushing the barrel. Pay attention to the familiar pair of pants at the bottom of the frame. This is the same pair from the first shot of the first episode of the series. The pants that fell from the sky and were run over by the RV were blown off Walter when he was running away frantically in terror. The reappearance of the pants here seems to mock Walter's complete alienation from his family and friends, leading to his tragic end. After rolling the barrel for most of the day in the wilderness, Walter finally finds a farmhouse.
Hello.
That truck belong to you?
It does?
I'd like to buy it.
It's not for sale.
However, most problems in this world can still be solved with money. Meanwhile, Marie, having learned the news, arrives at her sister's car wash. She tells Skylar about Walter being arrested by Hank and says that Hank and she will help Skylar get through this ordeal. The condition is that Skylar must hand over all the DVDs Walter recorded to discredit Hank, which is Marie's true purpose for coming. Hearing this, Skylar can only reluctantly agree. But what Skylar never expected was that Marie would force her to tell Walter Jr. about it right now. Reflecting on the previous plot, when Skylar chose to launder money for Walter, keeping the children out of it was her bottom line. But now, Skylar has no choice in the matter. When Walter Jr. learned that his father was a criminal, he couldn't accept the harsh reality.
You're completely out of your mind. If this is true, then how could you keep this a secret? I mean, why? Why would you go along?
As viewers, we feel that Marie, standing on the moral high ground, is forcing her sister to let Walter Jr. know the truth, which inevitably feels like Marie's triumphant venting. Even though Walter Jr. would eventually find out, perhaps hearing it from Walter later might have lessened the blow. However, these plot arrangements are crucial setups for the following storyline. Meanwhile, a frantic Walter returns home, hastily packing his family's clothes, preparing to take them away immediately. When Skylar returns with an emotional Walter Jr. and sees Walter packing, Walter Jr. has a bellyful of questions that need answers from Walter, but at this moment, Walter has no time to explain.
Why are you here?
Skylar, please, will you just go get your things for you and the kids right now? This is our priority.
Hank had you in custody. He wouldn't just let you go. Where is he? Where's Hank?
I negotiated.
Negotiate?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Everything is going to be fine, but we need to leave right now. All right? Can we do that?
What happened? Where is Hank? Where is Hank?
All we have to do is go. We have to go right now. That's all we have to do.
You killed Hank.
What?
No.
You killed
No! Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be fine. I promise you, but we need to leave right now.
After Walter received Jesse's call and left his family without saying goodbye, they were still on the same side. If Marie hadn't come to Skylar, Walter might have already taken his family and fled by now. But now, Skylar and Walter Jr. no longer trust him. Skylar slowly walks to the kitchen and picks up a knife from the table. This shot echoes the one at the beginning of the episode when Walter lies to his wife. The knife on the table at the start seemed to foreshadow the ending.
Get out!
Stop! Stop! Dad! Stop!
To someone who has killed their own family member, Walter's words seem meaningless and only make him look more frightening. The camera slowly pulls back, symbolizing the family's growing distance from Walter. A terrified Walter Jr. hurriedly calls the police. Facing the fear in his wife and son's eyes, Walter feels helpless. The reality of losing his family while trying to protect them deeply mocks Walter, driving him to angrily take his one-year-old daughter away. A panicked Skylar runs after him, but it's too late. This also serves as an irony for Skylar's character. She tried everything to protect her children, only to lose them in the end, which is a devastating blow to her. In the behind-the-scenes footage of this scene, Anna was so immersed in the role that she couldn't calm down even after the cameras stopped rolling. Before the shoot, it had started to snow, and after filming, the director personally brought a coat to comfort Anna, Skylar's character. Anna, who also won Best Supporting Actress at the annual Emmy Awards for her outstanding performance this season. Meanwhile, Walter, who had taken his daughter, finds a nursery room to change her diaper. Judging by his clumsy movements, he probably hadn't changed his nappy more than a few times. When he picks up his daughter and asks her to call him daddy, she keeps calling for mommy instead. Walter was silent when he heard this. He realized that his daughter needed her mother's care more than his own. Meanwhile, the police have arrived at Skylar's house to investigate. Marie is puzzled as to how Walter could have taken the child after Hank had arrested him. At this moment, Walter calls. The police need to record the call and trace its location for clues. The following conversation appears as if Walter is blaming his wife, but in reality, he is trying to clear Skylar of being an accomplice. Walter knows the police will use the call recording as evidence.
This is your fault. This is what comes of your disrespect. I told you, Skylar. I warned you for a solid year. You cross me, there will be consequences. What part of that didn't you understand?
You took my child.
Because you need to learn.
You bring her back.
You were never grateful for anything I did for this family. Oh no, Walt, you have to stop. You have to stop this. It's immoral, it's illegal. And now you tell my son what I do after I've told you to keep your damn mouth shut. You stupid.
Skylar understands the true purpose of Walter's call and cooperatively apologizes to him.
I'm sorry.
Walter, holding back immense sadness, takes all the blame, including Hank's death.
You mark my words, Skylar. Toe the line, or you will wind up just like Hank.
Tell me what happened. Where is Hank? Please.
You're never gonna see Hank again. You think about that.
Walt. I just want Holly back. Just come home.
I've still got things left to do.
Choking back tears, Walter destroys the phone to prevent it from being traced, then looks at his daughter in the car with deep reluctance. Walter has already decided to return his daughter to her mother, as he is calling from in front of a fire station. To attract the firefighters' attention, Walter pulls the fire alarm, ensuring they will find his daughter sitting in the cab when they come to turn it off. Seeing her pitiful expression, the audience can't help but feel a wave of heartache. Alone, Walter takes his $11 million in cash and begins his life on the run. Breaking Bad is revered as a classic production because it vividly portrays the stark realities of human nature. It acts as a mirror reflecting the other side of ourselves. The protagonist, Walter, with his ironic life and tragic fate, perfectly embodies the show's title, Breaking Bad. It depicts the behavior and psychological state of those who stray down the wrong path, struggling between right and wrong. At the same time, it serves as a warning for each of us to see our own life paths clearly, not to lose ourselves on a narrow road like Walter, ultimately leading to the destruction of family and home, and forcing him to go on the run. When Walter is taken away, he happens to encounter Saul, who is also in hiding. Walter writes a note and hands it to Saul, asking him to find a few professional hitmen to exact his revenge. But as a professional lawyer, Saul still advises Walter to turn himself in, because even though Walter has distanced himself from Skylar in the phone call, if the police can't catch Walter for a long time, they will certainly trouble his wife. At that time, the house will be confiscated, the bank accounts will likely be frozen, and Skylar won't be able to find a job. Walter naively thinks he can transfer the money to his family, but Saul explains that the police are hoping Walter will try this, as it will make it easy for them to catch him if he tries to contact his family. However, Walter, blinded by hatred, swears to kill Jack's gang and take back the money he risked his life to earn. Walter insists he is doing all this for his family. Just then, Ed calls Saul to leave, telling the troubled Walter to wait. But Walter says the plan has changed and demands that Saul go with him because he needs Saul to help him strategize. Ed tells them to discuss it and make a decision. It's clear that Saul disagrees at this point. Remember the last time Saul went against Walter's wishes and what Walter said to him?
We're done when I say we're done.
Now Walter tries the same tactic, but before he can finish, he starts coughing like a sick cat, struggling to catch his breath. It seems his cancer is getting worse. Saul delivers his final line, marking his official exit from the series.
It's over.
As Saul predicted, Skylar is helpless when questioned by the police. She knows that if she doesn't give up Walter, both she and the children will be in trouble. Unfortunately, she has no idea where Walter is. If you look closely, you'll notice that Skylar looks much older overnight. With no leads, the police have no choice but to place Skylar's family under 24-hour surveillance. Ironically, when Skylar comes out at night to care for her daughter, she suddenly discovers several black-clad hitmen in the house. The person speaking with Skylar is Todd. Confirming that Skylar wouldn't alert anyone, Todd releases her. Remember when Walter decided to return to his family and Lydia came to see him at the car wash and Skylar kicked Lydia out? Now, with Walter being pursued by the DEA, the ever-cautious Lydia fears that Skylar might expose her, so she orders Todd to kill her. Out of respect for Walter, Todd doesn't kill Skylar but warns her not to mention anything about Lydia. At this point, Skylar was trembling with fear. For the sake of her daughter and her own safety, she agreed to all of Todd's conditions without hesitation. Seeing Skylar's sincere attitude, Todd leaves reassured. The next day, a well-groomed Todd meets with Lydia to report on his work. Lydia, as usual, communicates with Todd back-to-back like a spy. Upon learning that Todd did not kill Skylar but merely warned her, Lydia expresses her concern and says she will end their collaboration. Lydia doubted their ability to produce the high-quality contraband she wanted. However, Lydia is shocked when Todd mentions that there are 50 pounds of 92% pure contraband.
92%.
Truly?
And it's just like before.
92. That's Heisenberg level.
This explains why Todd stopped Jack from killing Jesse. They already have Walter's $70 million. There is no need to take such a big risk to produce more illicit products. All of this is because Todd likes Lydia. He does these things to create opportunities to interact with her. On the surface, Todd seems unremarkable, behaving almost like a beast with little humanity, but his love for Lydia adds depth to his character. Meanwhile, Walter is taken to New Hampshire by Ed, who provides him with a new identity.
Mr. Lambert, welcome to New Hampshire.
Previously, Walter was in New Mexico, located in the southwestern U.S. near the Mexican border. New Hampshire, however, is in the northeastern U.S. near the Canadian border. The area is a frozen wilderness, located on a remote mountain without phones or internet, with food supplies arriving only once a month at best. Each supply run costs $50,000. Ed warns Walter to stay put and make a list of anything he needs, which Ed will bring. If Walter doesn't follow the rules, Ed cannot ensure his safety, and the special service will be terminated. After giving all instructions, Ed departs, although Walter avoids imprisonment. Being isolated in this desolate place, cut off from the world, seems far worse than prison, compared to Walter's lucky escape. Jesse's situation is even more dreadful. Poor Jesse is imprisoned in a cellar by Todd and beaten beyond recognition. To prevent Jesse from escaping, Todd designs a custom anti-escape device for him. Even more cruelly, they post pictures of Andrea and Brock in the lab to threaten Jesse. At night, Jesse looked at the pictures of Andrea and Brock, and the idea of escaping came to him. After numerous attempts, Jesse finally removes his handcuffs. Just as he's about to make his move, he hears a noise outside. It turns out Todd is bringing him food, because Jesse helped him to create the opportunity to work with Lydia. As a reward, Todd sent Jesse ice cream to facilitate his escape. Jesse pleads with Todd not to cover the cellar with the tarp at night, saying he wants to see the stars. Todd, without much thought, agrees.
Good night, Jesse.
After Todd leaves, Jesse resumes his escape plan. He piles everything he can find underneath him, and with an intense survival instinct, Jesse grabs the overhead bars and manages to unlock the latch above. Just as he thinks he's about to escape, Todd and his men, alerted by the noise, rush towards him.
It's coming out, get it over with, because there's no way I'm doing one for you psycho.
Desperate, Jesse wanted to die, but for these inhuman robbers, Jesse's threat is not effective at all. The scene shifts to Todd arriving at Andrea's house, claiming to be a friend of Jesse. Hearing this, Andrea lowers her guard. Todd tells Andrea that Jesse is in the car across the street, and when she goes out to check, Todd cruelly shoots her in the head. Witnessing this, Jesse cries out in agony, completely broken. Now, if he doesn't comply, Andrea's son will also die because of him. It's safe to say Jesse's situation is worse than Walter's. Meanwhile, after the longest month of his life, Walter finally receives supplies from Ed. After a month of isolation, Walter eagerly examines the newspapers Ed brought him. Ed also thoughtfully provides various reading glasses and updates Walter on Skylar and the children. Skylar has returned to her maiden name and found a part-time job, leaving her daughter with neighbors while she works. Their house has been auctioned off by the bank since Heisenberg's identity was exposed. Their home has become a hotspot for tourists, forcing the bank to fence it off due to constant complaints from neighbors. Due to the recurrence of his cancer, Walter asks Ed to bring medication to manage it. Seeing Ed struggle to find a vein, Walter prepares to inject himself but hesitates and hands the needle back to Ed. Compared to his earlier determination, Walter's courage has dwindled. After settling Walter, Ed prepares to leave. Lonely, Walter pleads with Ed to stay longer, but Ed insists he has a long way to go. Desperate, Walter offers Ed $10,000 for 2 more hours, though Ed cuts the price in half.
10,000. 1 hour.
Walter's real intention is to test Ed's character.
What if I ask you to give it to my family? Would you do? If I said yes, would you believe me?
At this point, Walter no longer has the strong desire for revenge that he had at the beginning of the episode, but starts to think about how to give the money to his family before he dies. He creates a wall of clippings about his family's recent life and public opinion to keep track of their situation. Walter's health deteriorates, and he loses so much weight that his wedding ring slips off. He picks up the symbol of his love, threads it onto a string, and hangs it around his neck, the only reminder of his wife. Walter then notices a cardboard box, and a bold idea strikes him. He emptied the box and put the money in it. Walter wanted to give all the money to his family before he died. Otherwise, he would die in peace. The scene shifts to Walter Jr. being called to the principal's office for a call from his Aunt Marie.
Aunt Marie, what's going on?
Hold on a sec, honey.
Son, it's me. Please don't let on. Carmen's nearby, right? How she cannot know. Son, are you there?
Yes.
The things that they're saying about me, I did wrong. I made some terrible mistakes. But the reasons intended, I never intended. I'm sending Louis a package. Now it's addressed to Louis, but it's for you, your mother, and your sister. There's money inside. About $100,000. Okay. I think.
You want to send money?
Yes. Good.
Killed Uncle Hank? You killed him!
Wait, son.
No,
please.
what you did to Mom, you killed Uncle Hank.
Listen to me. You've got to listen to me.
Just shut up. Just stop it. Stop it. I don't want anything from you. I don't give a sh**. You
this money, your
killed
mother.
Uncle Hank. Why are you still alive? Why don't you just die already? Just die.
Hearing that his son refuses to accept his money, Walter realizes hiding is pointless and calls the police.
DEA, Albuquerque District Office. How may I direct your call?
I'd like to speak to the agent in charge of the Walter White investigation.
Who may I say is calling?
Walter White.
Hello?
Walter drinks while waiting for the police to arrive. At that moment, he saw a news interview with Gretchen and Elliot on television, where they mentioned their former co-founder, Walter, who is now the notorious Heisenberg. However, they both intentionally avoided the topic and denied Walter's contributions to the company in the early days. Seeing this, Walter seems to change his mind. When the police arrive, they find only an empty whiskey glass.